February 27, 1847, the California Star, Yerba Buena, California. From our Sacramento Correspondent, New Helvetia, February 13, 1847. Mr. E. P. Jones. Dear Sir, an opportunity offering today to send to your town by Mr. Lassen on his way down in a canoe, I write to inform you of the latest news from the mountains. Captain E. M. Kern, commander of this district, returned from Johnson's settlement on the 11th instant after an absence of some 10 days. He traveled on horseback and found the road very good both going and returning. On his arrival at that settlement, he found the 5 women and 2 men that had succeeded in getting in from the unfortunate company now on the mountains in much better health than could have been expected. In fact, they were suffering merely from their feet being slightly injured by the frost. They are living with the families of Messrs. Kaiser and Sickard and will come down to the fort for protection as soon as they can walk. Captain Kern succeeded in getting off the company that we raised here by mounting them on horses belonging to Captain J. A. Sutter. The men that returned from the mountains thought they could get to the company with but 4 days' travel in the snow. One of the 2 men returned with the party, but before Captain Kern left Johnson's, they had a heavy fall of snow on the mountains, reaching within 15 miles of Johnson's house. They started in good spirits, and we are in hopes they will be able to reach them. Captain K would have accompanied the party as far as the Bear River Valley, immediately at the mountains, but was not able to cross the Bear River at Johnson's with his horses, as the raft and boat had been carried off by high water. I hope your citizens will do all in their power to assist the unfortunate party on the mountains. All the horrid reports that they have received, part of which I wrote you in my last, were corroborated by those who were so fortunate as to get in. March 13, 1847, the California Star, Yerba Buena, California. Later from the California Mountains. Fort Sacramento, March 5, 1847. Sir, last night, Mr. Aquila Glover, one of the noble men that went to the assistance of the suffering emigrants on the California mountains, arrived at this post with a letter from Lieutenant Woodworth, U.S.N., and, in compliance with his orders, I have thought proper, with Captain J. A. Sutter's consent, to forward to you, by couriers attached to this garrison, the information we have received, which must be interesting to every American. I send via Sonoma, as Captain Sutter will detain his launch here until Lieutenant Woodworth returns from the mountains, as we will have no communication by water from Yerba Buena until that time. The following is a copy of the letter received from Lieutenant Woodworth. Cache Creek, February 28, 1847. Mr. George McKinstry, Jr. Sir, an opportunity offering to write by Mr. Glover, now in my camp, and to leave for Fort Sacramento in the morning. I inform you that we reached the camp today at noon, it being the last point we can reach for grass, and tomorrow Captain Kern takes the camp back to a creek 12 miles from this place, where the grass is better for the animals, and will remain until I return to this camp with the people from the mountains. I start in the morning with 4 men and 3 mules packed with provisions. I have cached here 400 pounds of flour and shall carry about that quantity with me, also coffee and sugar. Mr. Glover will give you all the information about the first expedition, and I wish you to write to Captain J. B. Hull, commander of the Northern District of California, the information you receive from Mr. Glover. I shall not return until all the people are in camp. I shall then hasten down with them to the fort as soon as they can travel. Yours, S. E. Woodworth, U.S.N. Captain E. Kern informed you of the men sent up from this place to the assistance of the sufferers when we were first informed of their situation. I will again give you a list of their names, as I think they ought to be recorded in letters of gold. Keela Glover, R.S. Monterey, Daniel Rhodes, John Rhodes, Daniel Tucker, Joseph Sell, and Edward Copymeyer. Mr. Glover, who was put in charge of this little brave band of men, returns to me his journal, from which I extract as follows. On the 13th of February, 1847, our party arrived at the Bear River Valley. 14th, remained in camp, preparing packs and provisions. 15th, left Bear River Valley and traveled 15 miles and encamped on Yuba River. 16th, traveled 3 miles and stopped to make snowshoes. 17th, traveled 5 miles and camped on Yuba River. Snow 15 feet deep, dry and soft. 18th, traveled 8 miles and encamped on the head of Yuba River. 19th, traveled 9 miles, crossed the summit of the California mountains, and reached part of the Suffering Company about sundown, in camp near Truckey's Lake. Mr. Glover informs me that he found them in a most deplorable condition, entirely beyond description. 10 of their number had already died from starvation, and he thinks several others will die in camp, as they are too low to resuscitate. The whole party had been living on bullock hides 4 weeks. On the morning of the 20th, the party went down to the camp of George Donner, 8 miles below the first camp, and found them with but 1 hide left. They had come to the conclusion that when that was consumed, to dig up the bodies of those who had died from starvation and use them as food. When the party arrived at the camp, they were obliged to guard the little stock of provision that they had carried over the mountains, on their backs, on foot, for the relief of the poor beings, as they were in such a starving condition that they would have immediately used up the small store. They even stole the buckskin strings from their snowshoes and ate them. This little brave band of men immediately left with 21 persons, principally women and children, for the settlements. They left all the food they could spare with those, 29 in number, that they were obliged to leave behind, and promised them that they would immediately return to their assistance. They were successful in bringing all safe over the mountains. 4 of the children they were obliged to carry on their backs. The balance walked. On their arrival at the Bear River Valley, they met a small party with provisions that Captain Kern of this fort had sent for their relief. The same day, they met Mr. Reed with 15 men on foot, packed with provisions, who, ere this, have reached the sufferers. Lieutenant Woodworth was going ahead with a full force and will himself visit them in their mountain camp and see that every person is brought out. Mr. Greenwood was 3 days behind Mr. Reed with the horses. Captain Kern will remain in camp with the Indian soldiers to guard the provisions and horses, and will send the sufferers down to this post as soon as possible, where they will be received by Captain J.A. Sutter with all the hospitality for which he is so celebrated. And in the meantime, Captain Sutter will keep up a communication with Captain Kern's camp so as to be in readiness to assist him on all occasions. Mr. Glover informed me that the wagons belonging to the emigrants are buried some 15 feet under the snow. He thinks that it will be some 3 weeks from this date before Lieutenant Woodworth can arrive at this fort. Mr. Glover left the party at Bear River Valley on express, as I had written to him by the second party of the death of one member of his family and the severe illness of his wife. The balance of the party will reach here in some 4 or 5 days. The weather is very fine, and we have no doubt but that Lieutenant Woodworth will be able to bring all left on the mountains. George McKinstry to Captain J.B. Hall.